Good afternoon. So we continue with the Animation Day program in the Autonomous Region of Madrid. Within the program, we like to do presentations, but we also like to do specific shows, to do showings of short films or feature films. And sometimes it does make sense and sometimes it doesn't. And this time we wanted to talk in depth with Nuria Blanco, who is one of the most important people and professionals of animation worldwide, and also one of the friendliest people in the industry. And for that, I think it's important to have a great interviewee and a great interviewer. And so we have with us Jaime Lang, who's the chief editor of Cartoon Proof, a website that makes a great balance between the industry and the love for animation. And if you don't know it, then maybe you should check it out. And we're also lucky enough that, he lives in Madrid, so he's decided to come and do the interview, in fact, in Spanish. So it's something that we are very thankful for. So thank you very much. I give you the floor. Let's start.
Bueno, yo decir gracias, Manuel. Todo el mundo necesita un Manuel.
I would like to thank you. I think everyone needs a Manuel. Put a Manuel in your life, you know. I think it's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Nuria, for being here to talk to me today. Maybe there'll be a bit of Spanglish today because I'm not Spaniard and I've been in Spain for 7 years now. So if I have any problems, I'll speak in English, but I'll try to do it in Spanish. We'll see. Thank you, Nuria. I think we should start with the show. And maybe you can tell me how you started in animation and how you started your work here in Spain a few years ago. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I'm sure that since you were child, you probably liked animation, any aspect of animation. Then for some reasons, I in the end started studying optics. That has nothing to do with it. And then I went to Scotland to learn English, which is also surprising to some people. And I realized that working and studying at the same time over there was easier. And in the end, I went to Edinburgh College of Art to study animation. And when I went there, I didn't know that I was going to find a job. I wanted to try it. I was so passionate about the craft, I wanted to do it. And when I finished, I had my experience in optics with lots of teams and a lot of people. And then by studying in the College of Art, since they didn't tell me exactly, and I didn't know exactly where to start, I thought, they told me production, because then you can see all the departments and then you can decide in which one you would like to stay. And I really liked production, and I started with an internship in Cartoon Saloon. After that, I spoke to some studios with Zacarias de Santiago, for instance, who was a producer in Thinkia at the time. And he was very kind, and he met me, and he gave me advice, and that's something I'll thank him for the rest of my life for, because he was really helpful. And I started doing the internship. I was production coordinator after that. And 1 year later, I had to leave Cartoon Saloon because there was no work. You know, the projects come to an end. This happens a lot in animation. You know, projects don't line up and you have to leave. And so I went to Thinkia because I still had the contact with Zacarias, and I was in Thinkia for a year as a production coordinator. And how was that work? What was a normal day like when you work in production? Because, we'll talk later about the nomination to the Oscar for production. But at the time when you were starting, what were the first few days like? Well, I had a great time. You don't stop in production or in many other departments, in fact. Right from the beginning, you are the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. But that's why I continued with production, because I loved it. I loved meeting the whole team. I loved seeing how the pieces fit, how everyone managed to, how it all was all working. So it was really interesting to be able to assemble the project. Obviously, you don't stop. It was like the best gym ever, because you are always from here to there to here. And it was great. I really like the fact that you met lots of people, because we're all creative people. One part of it is artistic and the other side is production, but we're all creative because we're all about problem solving. There's problems that we like to solve, and I think we're all creative. So I really like the fact that whenever there was a problem, well, we can't meet the deadline, or this has happened, or someone is stressed out. Well, both professionally, the project itself, but also in terms of the human side, talking to people and seeing the wonderful work that people did was great. I felt like I could it was like a masterclass, because I could be in all the meetings, and I was really lucky to be in all the departments. And you're there just sitting, listening to the director, to the supervisor, looking at all those materials. And for me, I was like a sponge. I was like, I'm full up. I no more water. I can't take in anything else. I'm not saying that everyone would like it. Not everyone has to go through production. But at least one day in production will be good for everyone, so that they see exactly everything that goes on in production. And obviously, you are very lucky, because Cartoon Saloon is one of the most important studios, animation studios in the world. It has lots of Oscar nominations and other awards that they have won. In which productions did you start working when you went to Cartoon Saloon? As an intern, I went on a pilot. I started working a pilot for Disney. There are a lot of projects in development, and obviously this one didn't make it in the end. And I remember that when I got that project, I didn't know what I was going to do. I really like Secret of Girls. The Secret of Girls, and I still remember the scene of the butterflies. It was lovely. And when I got there and I received the project for Disney, it was like a dream to me. I couldn't believe I was there. When that concluded, then the studio was in transition. Before Song of the Sea, they hadn't started. So then it happens in the studios. Now they also do their own projects or larger co-productions. By the time they needed more money, so they did some projects for others, like subcontracted themselves. And it was called A Fleabag Monkey Face. Not Fleabag, not the Fleabag, the series. No, not that one. It was about a monkey. Well, it was created by two children. The monkey is created by two children with a toilet. It was great fun, and the director is great. He's called Jace Hall, and it's great to work with him. And then the supervisor of storyboards, with whom I work now, and we've worked in many projects together. That's where I met him, Maurice Joyce, and he also works in Cartoon Saloon. So that's how we all started, also with Rosa Esther Cabo, which is one of the key designers for Cartoon Saloon. So she was also on the storyboard of those. So these are like small projects that at the beginning you think, where's this heading to? Maybe it hasn't received so much recognition, but it's projects where you started meeting everyone, incredible people. And in that project, I got the job of head of production, because after being production coordinator, I had only been there for a few months, but I could already lead a small team. So we had that project that we were doing the stories, the animatics for that series. And when it finished, well, there was nothing else. The Son of the Scene wasn't kicking off, and I had many bills to pay because I had been a student and I had loans to pay, so I couldn't wait. And that's when I came to Madrid. I was in Thinkia for 1 year. The series, the fourth season, was not doing well at the beginning either, and I felt like I needed to study and learn more. And I have to thank Reggie, because she was the head of production, and she taught me at lunch, in her lunchtime hours, because I wanted to learn and learn and learn, and she would dedicate all her time, all her free time to me. So I've had the opportunity to work with great people that were very kind, and so it's not just the projects themselves, it's the people you work with that teach you. And obviously everyone wants to start with a hit. Everyone wants to earn awards with the first production. But what happens when the first production in which you work ended? What is it like when you're new and you want to do everything, but the project doesn't go well, doesn't start? Well, back then you are not so knowledgeable, unless you do a feature film, obviously, and then it's horrible. But when you're part of a larger team, I mean, you feel sorry, especially when you like the project, like this pilot from Disney that I mentioned before. But well, you talk to producers and they show you things very clearly. They say, okay, this is a pilot, 1 out of 10 that's going to go forward, and we'll see which one wins. But at least you have the experience. And back then, it's true that when an animation series doesn't come up, doesn't go green, doesn't get the green light, rather there's no loan either behind it. And that's, so you could have said, I was a project coordinator for this job, but you couldn't. And sometimes you cannot even say the name or the title of the series until 4 years have gone by. So having been in the credits in something that has got the green light is great, actually. But everything goes well in the end. As long as you can continue working and learning, the time will come. And for instance, when I left Sinkia, I went to England. I work in Passion Pictures, and they do a lot of adverts of great quality.
Trabajando.
And I was there for 3 months working with them in ads for TAC. And I contacted lots of people. I learned a lot from them. And I also realized that doing ads is amazing when you have such an amazing team as the one I had on Passion Pictures. What I really like are characters. And I realized that I like telling stories. And it can either be in a short film or a long feature or a series for television, but I like characters. And actually, I was lucky because Cartoon Saloon called me again. He asked me to be production chief for Buffin Rock, which is a preschool series that's on Netflix.
Planetas, dije, claro que sí, me vuelvo. Bueno, llevo.
And that was in the year 2000, so I've been there for 10 years now, and I've been there since then. And it was, well, if I were to tell you something during the first the first season, Buffin Rock, I was line production. Because everything that I did was line production. So they tell you have to spend 2.5 million euros. Now, there you go, spend them. And I remember that I locked myself in a room and I said, no, just look at it as though it was Monopoly money. Because if you think about the things that you can buy for yourself with this money, we're ruined. Because it's like having a crystal ball. But I don't have a crystal ball. And I have to spend it on lots of people who are going to do this and that. So when we went and did the second season, I really recommend this. You have to say what it is that you want. You have to say it, because sometimes if we don't say it, then people will not read our minds. And I said, okay, I will do the second season, but I need to have the credit that corresponds to me, and I'm line producer. And there was no problem whatsoever. And they said, oh, yeah, of course, and that was it. And everything was fine. But, you know, these are the things, the sort of things that I like to remind everyone about, because with credits, I've always been easygoing, it's all right, this or that, because you're so passionate about your projects that you forget about that. But your credits are the ones giving you your next job, so it's important. So I always say this because I was like, no, that's all right. No, credits are not that important. We will see that later on. Or this credit here, well, it's actually bigger than this. Well, why would I mention my name here 3 times? Yes, well, but the thing is, those 3 credits are going to give you 3 different jobs and 3 different opportunities. So that's something you have to take into account. And then you worked, well, you were producer for a short movie. I don't know the name in Spanish because I think it has not been translated. I don't know if it has been translated. It's late afternoon. And in Spanish, the name sounds actually awful, so I'm sure they haven't translated it. No, I am actually going to see if I can change it. Tarde, tarde. I like that, actually. But did you like that experience? Because after television, after doing a series for preschool children, it's a great change. And then doing a short for an adult audience. But you said you want to work with characters, and you have characters here as well, but it's a bit more adult. The topics are a bit more adult, and the format is completely different. Yes, exactly. It's different, but to me, and that is why I still work for Cartoon Saloon, and that is why we do the projects that we do. What I like is that it is very much aligned with my values. And all of the projects, whatever their format, always have that little heart beating in them. Those values, those ethics that are aligned with me and mine. So the only difference is what you were saying previously, Jamie. It's the format. I really like to explore. I like to explore lots of different options. I like that. And before I did that short, I produced a different short, but I didn't do it with Cartoon Saloon. I did it independently. And how long did it take us? I think I started with the director with whom I worked on the first time at Cartoon Saloon. We started that short when I was finishing my contract with Finkia, and it took me 3 years to finish that because he was the director for Puffin Rock. And when you're working and they're paying you for that, you give everything to that, and your personal time is limited. But we did that short whilst doing our job, and we didn't get much funding. We actually had to find personal investors, and that short is called Violet. And that short, it didn't have much financing, but it had very good results. It was very much accepted in festivals, and it was accepted at the Toronto Film Festival and Tribeca, and we were long listed for the Oscars, but we were not shortlisted for the Oscars. And actually, Cartoon Saloon started seeing me in a different way as a producer, not just a production chief or a line producer. They saw that there was something else to me, another side to what I could do. So I really recommend you have to try and learn everything you can from the job you're at. And if there is something missing in that job, then dedicate your personal time without getting burned. I mean, you have to sleep, you have to eat, and so on. But try and do these things, small little projects to build your show reel, your portfolio, and so on. And when I did that short, I already had experience in that short. And in the studio, they gave me the job of development producer to help Paul Young, who was doing everything at the time. And he said, okay, that's great. Then I will be focusing on long features, and Nuria will help me with series, with the development of series. So I was helping him. And Luis Bagma, who's the late afternoon director, and I had worked with her at Puffin Rock. She's wonderful. And she saw me in the stairs, and she said, Nuria, there's a short that I have written down, and I want to know if you want to produce it. And I said, yes, of course, we will do that. Yes, tomorrow. We can just have lunch together, and we'll talk about that. And then I thought, what if I don't like it? I've already committed it. I've engaged myself. And my instinct was right, because the story is amazing. I was actually crying through the reading, and it was a wonderful collaboration. Very, very, very hard, because those of you who have done short movies, you know that it is really very hard, because you never have enough money or enough time, and you always want to have the maximum quality. And it's interesting, because when did you know that you had a hit with that movie? When you read the script, or... Because obviously that short movie was shortlisted for the Oscar, and I know that the list is very, very long. When did you know that was a special movie? Well, I could not know that it was going to be a success. I just knew whether I liked it or not. I mean, I can tell whether it is something I like and whether I want to dedicate my time to it, because it is a story that is worth sharing with others, and whether you like it or you don't like it, that's not something that isn't within my control, but it's about instinct. Because maybe what I like most is something that someone else might not like, but that person is going to have his or her audience as well. And obviously, I always take into account the audience, the public, but not the universal audience, everyone in the planet. I just think about the age of the public, the audience that it is targeting, that sort of thing. But I don't think this, which is here, has been very successful, so I'm going to do this that should have the same success. I don't think about it that way. I think I want to tell this story. I've fallen in love with this story and these characters, and I want to share it with the world. And then if it doesn't work, well, what are you gonna do? I just learned something. I had fun while doing it. It's true that late afternoon, at least at the beginning, the festivals did not choose us. We started very, very slowly until we got into Tribeca, the New York Festival. And when we got the award at Tribeca, then things changed, you know. Then people start accepting you, and it all goes very, very fast. That you're like bombarded. And in Ireland, actually, there's the Galway Festival, the Fling Flag Festival, which is very important. And the Fling Fly Festival, there's the main award is the one that qualifies you to be shortlisted for the Oscars, and that is what we got with Violet. We got the first, the main award, and that has its pros and cons, because we were forced. I mean, if you have qualified, then you have to do it for that year. You cannot wait, and that really limited our festival campaign, because that happened in July. And for September, you have to be ready. So when we didn't win, we got another award, which was the best animated sequence, the prettiest sequence, you could say. And I remember that Louise was actually down. She said, we haven't won. And I said, that's good. That's good. Because now we have a whole year to do the whole festival run, so that we can get exposure, so that people can see us. Because if we're not competing, because otherwise we will be competing with movies that have been in Los Angeles for a very long time. They have been seen and reseen. And it actually worked for us, because Tribeca was in April. And from July to April, imagine that. We had a festival here, a festival there, but in April we had Tribeca. And then it started raising like foam. And in September next year, then Late Afternoon was already well known. Yes, I think it is long listed for the Oscars for shorts this year. So it's like, okay, September, October. Yes, exactly. And you talked about the expectations and the audience for a short feature, for a short movie. And you know, when you're doing a short, you know that you're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to have lots of box office returns, but I'm guessing that with series you have to think about the audience, don't you? Because as you said, the other series are in Netflix, and with Netflix you do want a second season or a third season, and if you want that, you have to wear lots of different caps, or you need to be in the top 10 during that season, right? So how's the process when you're in development and also in production, when you have to think about a wider audience? Yes, that's the good thing about short features, that you can do whatever you want, actually, and I love it, because you can tell whatever story you want, because it's not going to be going to a broadcaster, especially if it's for kids. It's very limited. With Puffin Rock, it was a bit different, because we started doing Puffin Rock. Netflix saw it, they really liked it, and they purchased it. So it was a bit different. We didn't have to work with them in production as we do with Nickelodeon and other broadcasters. But yes, there are lots of things that have to be taken into account, especially if you have content for kids. You need to really take into account their age, the the younger they are. I mean, if it's preschool, then you have to take lots of things into account, not just so that the TV stations don't get a legal some sort of legal procedure opened against them, but you also have to think about the audience. What do they like? What are their interests? And you want to give them the best content possible that agrees with their age, more or less, because obviously you cannot generalize because not all human beings are the same. Yes, that was actually something interesting. We went to Cartoon Swingboard this week as well, and that was interesting because I talked to different channels with platforms and producers, but I've never seen in a group producers, creators, and platforms and TV stations together in the same group. And it was interesting because I didn't really know what are the specific conditions that broadcasters have. Because, for instance, a lady said, no guns. There can't be swords or guns or any sort of handguns and so on. And there are many things that they have to take into account when they're creating something for kids. Yes, and it depends on the country as well. There are TV stations that are more strict than others. But in general, it's true. It's mainly common sense. I mean, in preschool, you can't have massacres and get intestines out of bodies and so on. Although I don't think that preschool kids would mind, because I was an 80s kid and I have seen things you wouldn't believe, and I think I'm all right. But I guess that is questionable. I don't know. That was a surprise for me as well when they told me a short movie about fish that fight, and they said, no, you can't have a fight if you want to show something to kids. But I think in some countries, I mean, I come from the US, and there are guns in all of the series that we have in the US. We're used to it. We're used to seeing those things. And I come from the 80s as well.
Bueno, tú llegaste 2 veces en Irlanda.
But you're in Ireland, and you did an internship in Ireland, and then you stayed to work with them for 9 years. Can you tell us about the difficulties when you get to a new country? Because I think that at the time, many Spaniards went to other countries to work in France, or work in Germany, work in Ireland. What's life like? I mean, I know because I'm an immigrant as well. But when you're in a new country, what's life like? Being an artist in a new country with a different language, different customs, and so on. Well, it has the difficulties of moving to a different country with a different language. Yes, I think that that's the main thing. When I got to Ireland, well, I actually had lost some of my English from being in Spain. I sometimes say that when I go to Spain, I eat a lot and my tongue gets thick. So I speak like this. But it's true that I don't understand because I spend a week there and then I'm fluent. But then I come back home. I'm with my mom. I spend 2 days in Spain and then I do a video conference and I can't get any words out. But yes, it's a different culture, and it's within Europe, so it's not a very different culture. I've also lived in Scotland. It's true that the first time I went there, I remember that they were very nice, and they picked me up from the hospital, the airport, and the uncles of someone came and got to me, and they took me to the supermarket, a very weird supermarket where everything was frozen, and tomato sauce was actually in tubes as if it were your toothpaste. And I thought, what is this? But that is where I bought everything I needed. But I think we have to look at it from a funny perspective. We have to be open. Instead of saying, oh, I missed this, I don't have this, I don't have that. No, I looked at it from the other point of view. Oh, look at this, we don't have this there. Oh, look at this, how funny this is. And with people, well, the same thing can be said. I mean, if you didn't understand something, when I got to Ireland, I could speak English, obviously. But the first time I went to Scotland, it was harder. I remember that I wouldn't leave my room until my flatmates would leave in order not to say good morning. Because And I actually forced myself to living with people who didn't speak Spanish so that I would learn English. But I was like, oh, no, 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 I don't feel like it. So you also have to watch everything in original version. I always see everything with English subtitles so that I get more vocabulary. But I remember that a day a 3-year-old girl came to talk to me and she spoke fluently. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, hello. But she got bored with me. She said, oh my God, I can't talk to this woman. She doesn't have any conversation starters or anything. And you chose Scotland. And I think that Scotland is one of the worst accents, one of the worst countries to learn English, because the accent is really difficult for me. Yes, but it was the first thing I got to learn, and I had that accent for a very long time. I had a Scottish accent, and everyone, when they heard me speaking, they would laugh at me, thinking, "What is this? A Spanish Scottish woman?" Well, culturally as well in Ireland, they don't have as much bureaucracy when you rent a flat or when you do lots of things. It's much simpler, and that is something to be thankful for. Yes, and you're lucky now because now Ireland is not part of the UK because with Brexit. No, absolutely. Because the studio, if it had been in England, then it would have been a bit more difficult for you. But in order to work, what do you need to do? I mean, if someone is thinking about working in a different country, what do they need to know? Bureaucracy is one of the things that they need to know because it's different in each country, but you need to be patient, right? Yes, I can talk about, obviously, about my experience in Ireland. And in Great Britain, I guess that things have changed quite a bit, so I don't know what the situation is right now. But in Ireland, it's actually quite simple. I mean, you can get to Ireland and you can register as a freelance worker, which is much simpler than in Spain and much cheaper than in Spain. And since you're within the EU, you can work wherever you want, and you can register as a freelance. Or if you work for a studio, you will get your contract and you will pay to the treasury a certain amount, or they will simply take it from your paycheck. It's simpler. And what I think is good about Ireland with regards to animation industry is that there are lots and lots of people from many different places. There are lots of Italians, lots of Spaniards, lots of French people, people from the world over, really. And you don't feel alone because there's always someone you can talk to, someone you identify with. I mean, there's all sorts of things like everywhere really, but in general, I feel like Irish people are very nice. They usually want to help and they don't put hurdles along the way just because bureaucracy for everything, opening a bank account, for instance, or finding a job, finding a flat, is usually very reasonable, I'd say. I think that I haven't had to show my ID or my passport during all of these years that I have been renting a flat. I could be anyone and they don't know anything about me, but, well, I guess that has its good side, and I'm guessing that there are more people who are reasonable than people trying to trick people. I think that it's quite simple. The only thing is language. I mean, you have to learn English. You have to do that. But I went to Scotland with my grammatical English and reading English, but I couldn't have a conversation. And when I was there, all pieces clicked together. And I thought, oh, this is what they've been trying to tell me all these years. And I think that happened when I was 25. So if I could do it, anyone can. That's what I basically wanted to say. It's just about moving around and to make an effort. And maybe the first night you'll cry a bit and say, what am I doing here? But then the next day you take a stroll and you say, well, it's not that bad. And has the work changed now? Because now everyone is working from home. Can you now work a bit more with other countries? Do you have freelancers from other countries who work with you? How does it work now after the pandemic? Because now everyone is really comfortable in their homes. Well, we have realized that you can do it. Now, it depends on your personality as well, and it depends on the situation you have at home. Because if you have, for instance, 4 children who are always around you, then it's not that nice. Or if you're a very extroverted person who recharges her batteries by having people around her, then it's not the best thing to work at home. Or if you're sharing a flat with 4 different people and you have to be in a very, very small room and you're always there, then it's not that nice. So it depends on your situation. We have a mix, and now in the studio we have a hybrid system. So those of us who want to work from home can do that a couple of days a week, and there's a hybrid model. It's true that there are certain things, such as the human side, the fun side, being with your colleagues, having coffee, doing break, laughing together. That is something we miss when we're not there, and it's necessary. But maybe not everyone needs it, because there's a neuronal diversity. We're all different, and some people don't need that. And just talking to people online is enough for them, and the work can be done. That is absolutely doable. We did that as many studios. We had to do it, and now we have to reach that. We have to strike that balance. We have to look at the good side of working from home and see how we can have a bit of everything. I know that you can't always do everything, but I do see that not having to work for 10 minutes for a meeting room was actually very productive. What we can't is have many people working remotely from outside of Ireland, because we depend from the tax. Well, I mean, the tax credits are important to us, and we lose 35% of the salary of people who are not working in Ireland. So that is something that we need to take into account. And during the pandemic, we all found it hard, because obviously we understood that some people wanted to leave. I mean, it was something that was understandable, obviously, and some people left. They wanted to be close to their families and so on. But we had to explain the situation, and we had to explain to people why everyone who wasn't Irish couldn't leave, because if we did that, then the production would fail, would sink, because it wasn't sustainable. I would say that 80% of our staff in some projects were foreigners, and that was a very high percentage. Okay, and what sorts of changes have you seen here in Spain during the time that you were? I mean, what has changed in Spain while you were outside? Because you worked here after college and then you left. So you're actually a foreigner now, and the industry here is different, right? Are you more used to the Irish industry? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm more used to that, and it's true that I can't really talk about the industry here. I can't really talk about it in detail, but I do see that it is growing, and we see that we need more help. We need more training, free training as well, because the model that Ireland has, the financing model that it has to train, to support the industry, is actually very, very good. They have really made a bet for audiovisual industry in animation as well as real image. And I remember during lockdown, during the COVID pandemic, there were courses. There was Animation Skillnet and Screen Skills Ireland, and they were doing free courses. They brought people who were top professionals to give courses of all sorts, so that people from home could get training while switching jobs, or while they were in between jobs, or so that they could simply cope with the pandemic. It's true that here I'm starting to see that they are starting to invest in that. People like Manuel, who's here, who has done a great work with the financing and really betting for animation and bringing events such as Cartoon Springboard to Madrid. And it's true that there are people who are really doing their best so that the industry can improve. So the talent is there. Actually, the talent is leaving because there isn't enough work here, or because it isn't well paid. It's not. And I always say, if the conditions here were the ones that we have in Ireland, other countries would be saying, no, everyone is leaving for Spain, because in Spain we live very, very well, and there's lots and lots of talent. So that's just it. It's not just about having training and subsidies or from the government, but also TV channels. I was listening to what we were saying. They do not really bet on national content, and it's like, really what is being produced here can be seen all over the world, and national stations don't purchase that content. Let's start and promote our content, the content that we do here. I think that, well, actually, it's also true that I always see the glass half full. And I want to say that we will see. We will see that this is actually a win-win situation. If the animation industry grows here and there is lots of content and people from outside of Europe come here, everyone will pay our treasury and everyone will benefit from it, which is what happens in Ireland, because they're really benefiting from that. They're benefiting from that whole, of that whole system with all these people working in Ireland. And also there are other benefits. So I really, really think that cultural diversity is very good and everything grows, and that this mix of talent is really very important, people coming from the world over. And I start seeing that, but I think that that is increasing and it could be even stronger.
And I think that we should also talk about your current work, right? Because obviously you're still working in Cartoon Saloon. Can you talk a little bit about the project that you have in hand? Yes, it's called Silly Sundays. It's a preschool series for children aged 3 to 5. And it's a project that, well, I believe in it. It was part of my personal project. I showed it to Cartoon Saloon, and the first time they said no, in a very polite way, but they said no. And obviously when you want to do something, but people don't want to do it unless you think, okay, well, I don't like it. Okay, you're not going to be there staying and talking always about the same. But it's good to listen to the critics and see why some people don't like it, why it's not working. And then work on it. And that's what I did. I worked for 1 more year on it and on the story. And I presented it again, because it's also true that, at the time I was working in the development department, and I saw, I went to the markets all the time for TV series, etc., and I could see the content that was coming out and what the TV channels wanted, and I was thinking, this is what I want, this is what I have, how can I present it? And right then, an idea can be very strong, but it wasn't at the right time, obviously. For instance, when we were looking for projects for Cartoon Saloon, sometimes you choose a project and that's the one you go for, right? And that's the one you develop. And then there's another one that you really like, that you love to develop, but you do not have the people to do it, you do not have the resources to do it. So you have to say, unfortunately, it's happened to me, sometimes I've said I would love to produce this project, but we do not have the resources, so you have to let it go so other studios produce it, which is also good, right? It's good for everyone. So I presented a second time and they liked it. They understood it much better. And we started developing. And then we presented in 2018 to Cartoon Forum, which is an event for pitching or TV series. Until 2018 till 2021, we were not able to produce it. And it's not a lot. It takes a while for TV series, all of them, right? This is the average, right? Did you decide to do the development, or you decided just to wait? No, you continue working, right? You continue working, yes, but do you continue working in this project or in others? No, in others, obviously. So you continue working in other things with other projects. There were many other productions. I was also as a production manager in Breadwinner in Late Afternoon. So there were lots of projects, other projects under development. So you work in other projects, and at the same time, you talk about that same project to other channels, and you do changes if any changes needed to be made. And as you think, okay, so I need money for a script and you look for money for the script. So everything it goes simultaneously. So there's a lot of changes between 2018 and 2021. No, it was more about the development of the script. That project didn't need a change. What happened, and this happens a lot, is that you're about to to go with a studio, right? To marry a studio, and then you have a channel that's very much interested, and you think it's going to work, and then when you're about to sign, suddenly there's restructuring on the channel, and now it's not the same people on that TV channel, and you have to start from scratch, basically. And that happened to us a couple of times as well, actually. So it's all like knowing when the planets align. But for the planets to align, you have to continue working, you have to continue talking, you have to try and find the opportunities. And then in 2021, we started in production. And until 2024, we won't finish because there are 78 episodes. Wow, I know. Yeah, every time I say 78 episodes, the world blows, doesn't it? But it's 78 of 7 minutes. And now I'm directing the project because I decided to take the step and go from producer to director, because in the end, it's the director that has the view of the project. And if you have experience, like it was my case, they gave me the opportunity, which was great. And right now I am directing it, and I'm also following very closely the script. And the truth is that I'm working really hard. How many people? In the studio, there's about 60 of us. But we also work with a French studio that's helping us with part of the animation. So we are half and half with them. And obviously, without considering the rest of the team, accounts, legal departments, all of that, which are people that we must not forget because they're also helping a lot. That's why when I talk about the different animation projects, it's not just animation and creative. There's the human resources department, there's the legal department, accountancy department. Some people say, well, I'm an accountant, I don't do anything creative. And you think, well, we need lots of accountants. And maybe you said it, but which broadcaster or platform is going to be on? We're working with Warner. It's going to be the main platform. Then the Irish channel, RTE, which always supports us a lot. You have a very good relationship with them, yeah? And so it's also going to be in the Irish channel, in the national TV channel. So hopefully will be for autumn next year.
Todavía no hemos terminado. Luego empezamos.
¿Y cómo funciona?
It will start by then.
Obviamente tienes ese proyecto gigante y necesitas mucho tiempo para ese proyecto.
So you have this giant project and you need a lot of time for that giant project, but obviously you are also thinking about other projects, right? Or listening, for instance, if a director today is on the steps here, and it's like with the tarde, like late afternoon, do you have time for him? Is your day fully taken by your ongoing projects, or? I have no time to think about a project or anything right now. It takes all my time. It's also true that I'm directing, not just producing, right? If I was producing a TV series, it's true that it's part of your work. So you are also thinking about other projects, and you can be present in more times. You can have your fingers in different projects. But right now, as director, it takes my whole time. Every time an idea comes to me, I write it down and I put it in a drawer, and I think, well, maybe in 2 years' time. And because I don't know, this is something that also happens to me. I always think, oh, there's an idea for a film or this or that, and sometimes you may feel overwhelmed because you think, okay, right now I'm gonna do this, and the rest will come. But yes, obviously you always think, oh, I'm working with this person or with this another, or producing this idea, because maybe it's an idea for a short film, but I don't know. I try to write them. Whenever I have an idea, I write them and I put them away. And when I have moment of space, I'll look back into that. And that's part of your work, right? Also to do those things. Do you also do springboards? And because the work is not just the office work, right? I saw you in several places and you do talks like this, but that's part of the work? Or do you think it's separate? Well, this is more separate. This one, yes. Yeah, but cartoon springboard, when you're a professional, yes, you come from the studio, then you represent the studio. And as a producer, that was a very important part of my work. You're representing the studio. I had to go to many places for recruitment. And I love to meet as many talented people as possible. Now, that's not my role so much. Because when you're a director, you have to be much more involved on the daily life and you have to be with the team in the studio. But as a producer, I did it for many years, yes. And there are events like Cartoon Springboard, which is awesome. And I'm here because it's been in the agenda for nearly a year. But it was a bit of a stretch to come here. They were telling me, where are you going? And I said, well, this has been on the agenda, on the calendar for a long, long time. So I have to stick to it. But I haven't gone even to Anne's this year. Next year, I hope to come back, huh? Call me back next year. But Anne's, Krishkin, Cartoon Forum, which are events I love, but this year I haven't been able to go. And next year, I guess not either. I'll just come to Cartoon Springboard, maybe. I think we've only got just a few minutes, but I would like to know what you think about the nomination, how it happened, because I guess that you had to go to Los Angeles and do everything, right? Because do they go to the producers? Well, you put both people that creatively have been the pillar of the project in there. In the short films, it tends to be the director and the producer because the producer is normally very creative. But it doesn't have to be. There are projects where is the director and the people that have been actually the pillars. In animation, well, everyone is important. So some people do this from beginning to end, but normally each project needs lots of minds, lots of eyes, lots of hands. And then it's true that then these moments like this come and you think, okay, the two people that go into the Oscars, we took the two art directors to the ceremony though. We all of us, we went together. But anyway, we won. We didn't win, but anyway, I mean, everyone went on to the party. The experience was very surrealistic. Wonderful, but surreal. I remember calling my parents and when I said we were nominated to the Oscars, and he said, what Oscars? And I said, the Oscars. And he went, but you mean the ones on the TV? Yes, the ones on the TV. What do you mean? The Oscars? It's not going to be the Oscars on my niece's communion, Holy Communion, but you're going to be there with everyone else. No, yes, of course, I'm not going to be in the next room. It's also true that you're not right where the big stars are there, like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. You're not there next to them. But it was a very surreal experience. And Los Angeles, you're not used to it. I don't know, if you live in Los Angeles, maybe you're used to those things. But in animation, normally you work in a studio and you just like, you're always with your head down, basically. And I used to say to Luis, but just jokingly, I used to say, do you think these Oscars will be material? Come on, do you think this is Oscars material? Come on, work harder. But it was just like it was nothing, I wasn't talking seriously, it was just a joke. But it's also true, the cartoons, that the company had 3 Oscar nominations, and you thought the quality, well, we always think the quality is important. I guess there's always an expectation, because when we write about My Father's Dragon, the new binaural, that's coming in a couple weeks' time, when we follow the comments you read the articles, you think, okay, they need to get a nomination. We need more films rather than Disney and Pixar in nominations. And Cartoon Saloon is the studio in the world, the independent studio in the world that has more nominations than any others, right? I'm not sure whether it has more than others, because I don't know, there's lots of studios which are really, really good and really large. So I don't know exactly if we are the one that's had the most. It's not competition anyway. But it's true that sometimes it's like a bit of a joke. You're collecting nominations. And then it's difficult to win because, more independent studios, it's more difficult. It's difficult, really. You're competing with large studios. I think when you win an Oscar, winning an Oscar is also about the planning, about the strategy. You have to have a strategy. Everything's part of it. How you move your film. And I think it's great, huh? And your work as a producer is also to work like that, no? In the campaigns. Yeah, and the director and the producer. The director has to give talks. The studio has to be very involved. You have to receive guidance too, in the nomination campaign, we could say. We were very lucky. It was a lot of work. I remember I was super happy. Everyone was super happy and very surreal. But you're also very tired because you're constantly selling it. And you also want to enjoy the experience. And you want to get to meet people. And also in my case, we had the 6 Sundays series that we hadn't sold yet. So you go to Los Angeles and you go to see Netflix, you go to see Amazon, you go to see the big studios, because you can say, oh, look, you see, we had this one that was nominated, and and there's this other project that we want to sell you, and the creator is been nominated. I think the way in which I see the awards are a recognition for the whole team. It's something that the whole team may be proud of, and everyone can put them on their LinkedIn, curriculum, etc. And it's also a great help to be able to do other projects after that. I think that's exactly it. It's a help to do more. Well, I think we've run out of time. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Gracias, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you for being so good with time. Wow, it's fantastic. And let's see if there are any questions. Let's make sure just to see if there's any other questions. And if not, Nuria and Jamie will be around here. So, in the Cartoon Springboard contract, it says that you have to come, I'm happy about that. If you tell me not to come, I'll start crying. Can you explain a little bit what Cartoon Springboard? Well, Cartoon Springboard, for those of you who don't know it, please go to Google and check it out. This is an event for pitching, but you do not need a producer, you do not need what you normally need for the Cartoon Forum. Normally you need more funding in order to have a more advanced project in Cartoon Forum. In Cartoon Springboard, it's not like that. It's for fresh talent. It's for young talent, people, or either people that graduated or people that are still students. So I think it's 5 years. It must be, 5 years from the moment you finish studying. And maybe you have a small company or nothing, or maybe you're at home, you finish, you have a project that you love, and you can send it to Cartoon Springboard, and you can present it to a group of, to everyone who's there at the event. And there's a series of professionals that give you constructive criticism, and this is a lovely event because there's a lot of support. We see it from the point of view of looking at fresh talent, fresh ideas. We like it because we see things that are outside the box. And the professionals, there's all types of professionals. We have distributors, we have broadcasters, we have people who work in studios, producers. There's a bit of everything. And they give you their feedback on the project so that the project may get to the next level, we could say. And you can go with a project or without a project for a special price, right? I think, yes. And it's great to do networking also. And there are parties. Yes, there are parties too. Animation is so collaborative that in the end, getting to know your colleagues and people with whom you may work is really important. It's really what creates projects, because it's in the end this relationship, building teams, that actually works. So just like Manuel and myself, I'm a great fan, and Jamie, yes, he's like a bit like X Factor too, because you see in a few minutes, and there's a quick pitch, and then you see people that criticize or give positive feedback. So it's a bit like that. Yeah. The professionals, I mean, sometimes as a professional, you also feel a bit bad, because you're there in front of everyone, everyone's looking at you, you have to say something smart. But I think it's very inspiring. I really do. I think it's very inspiring, and it helps everyone. Every time I go to that event, yeah, and thank you to the Autonomous Region of Madrid and the City of Madrid for organizing it. And you can look at the basic, at the specifications, and if you have a project, look at it. If you don't have a project, ask your schools to let you go, because this is really interesting. Yes, and in fact, many projects have come out from the Springboard and ended in the Cartoon Forum. I remember the Day of the Broadcasters, many times Netflix came. The most successful series of the Cartoon Forum this year is a project that went to Cartoon Springboard. Yeah, Best Friends Forever, right? By José Balbueno, that's right. But we're here for Nuria, so if you have any questions for her, please feel free.
Una aquí, por favor.
We have a question here.
No, esperado.
Please wait for the microphone, okay? Oh, right at the top there, and then down here, please. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. Can you introduce yourself first? Yes, my name is Leo. Hi. Do you come from any school? Yeah. I'm at the ESNE now, studying animation. There's a few of us here from there. It's been very refreshing to listen to you. We are now at a time when we're doing internships. We're just starting. And it's true that when you study animation, we receive much more information about how to do internships for animator or visual, as an animator or visual developer. But for production, it's not so easy to go into internships. So I wanted to ask you personally, what should I do if I want to do an internship in production? It's a really good question, because it's true. It's true. Like, it seems like another department, one that's not so well known. The truth is that it's the same. We've had lots of interns in production too. So it's the same. We have interns in all the departments. Many times, you just have to ask. And if you have a specific interest, send an email to a company saying, are you taking interns for production or production coordinators or production assistants? For instance, in Cartoon Saloon, and I'm saying this now, you have the careers email address, and there's people behind there that reads the emails, okay? Not a lot of people, so it may take a while. But you can ask. If there are no adverts on the site, you can always just send an email. You can say, I've seen there's no vacancies, but I would be very interested in doing this internship. And you can ask them, could you tell me when is the best time to send the application form? So sometimes you can't just wait for a vacancy to be advertised. You must ask. And obviously, respectfully, knowing that maybe it takes a while to get a response. Sometimes they may not respond, but you can continue asking. And coming to these events, right? And talking to people. In the case of production, sometimes it's good to look at the credits and see who's the producer, right? Yeah? If there's someone from production, you could say, okay, may I go to help you? Yeah, totally. And there may be others, but for instance, with Belligans, they have Mr. Cole, who's really accessible. and I'm sure you can call her anytime. And in Mystical, they also do courses, and she has lots of contacts. So also, networking is really important because many people have been in the industry for a long time, and they may know who needs what. And it's a way to put your foot on the door. Once you put your foot on the door, then it's easier, right? So it will happen. Do not despair, because we've all been where you are. When you try, and then you go slowly. But I think sending emails is a good idea, and do not despair if they don't answer. Just keep on going. And in Madrid, Manuel is the producer. But he's at a different level. I mean, Manuel knows everyone. Yeah, sometimes it's great when people just write with please and thank you, and that's lovely just to see that. Saying, oh, I like this film, or I was in this department. And we've all been there, right? I don't know who said that it's good to put your hand down in order to jump the obstacles, right? Yes, throughout our career, you'll always need support and collaboration. Obviously, when you finish studying, you don't feel like your curriculum, your portfolio is appealing enough. You've got like 2 lines, right? But it doesn't matter. We know that. Everyone knows that. Yeah, you need to find also experience. Or you could do personal experience. You could say, well, at university, I led my colleagues' projects. I really like doing the production for them. Or I've been working in parallel in this. And maybe it has nothing to do with animation. But it could show you how good you can lead, how well you can lead teams or talk to other people, which is also key for production, human contact. And all of that makes a difference. And the passion and the enthusiasm and the desire to learn, it's all a conversation. And I think also you can also say, well, if you don't have anything available, do you have anyone I may speak to get some advice? And most of the times, I mean, I don't know anyone that said, no, I'm too busy. Normally, if you ask, even if it's only a 10-minute talk, not whilst they're in the bathroom, okay? Outside the bathroom. No, and when they come out, not when they're about to go in, okay? Either. That's something you have this time to respect others. There's a question here. Thank you for the presentation. Your name? My name is Juan Andrés. You come from any school? Like my colleague. We are in the same classroom at the same school. I'm not sure if it's very common, but you spoke about projects that don't work or that are not successful. I would like to know what were the implications, or what are the factors that mean that a project will not succeed, if there's a common root cause, or if you've learned anything about the projects that will not make it. Good question. First of all, do not put your savings in animation, I wouldn't. I mean, you always put a little bit because you devote your time, and everyone's time, and time is money, and we have to value that. But it's also true that depending where the funding comes from, if it's television, broadcasters, I mean, for instance, in Ireland, if it's not successful, you don't have to give the money back, only if it's successful, and that gives you peace of mind. So they give you money for development, specifically for development. They don't expect you to give it back. So that already gives you, as I said, peace of mind. But personally, when something doesn't work out after so much dedication and motivation and desire, obviously it's disappointing and it's a bit hard. Especially in TV series, it comes to a time when you have to decide. After you've publicized it in different markets, and if it doesn't seem to work with anyone, well, you're not going to take the same project every year to them. It comes to a point where you have to just leave it aside. Either you change it fully, you redesign it totally, and you change it into something else, or you just stop working on it. It's part of the process. But many times there are things that can be rescued in the future. There's a time for everything to true. Like maybe a project doesn't work at a specific moment because, I don't know, it's about dinosaurs and all the broadcasters have a lot about dinosaurs. They don't want any more dinosaurs. But maybe in 10 years' time, you have this project and it's of interest again. So you have to see how the market is, and then every year you have to be well informed about what the different TV channels, TV broadcasters have. Obviously, sometimes you can't know it, but try to look for information and trying to find exactly what they want, because it's not just the target audience, but it's the TV channel that actually pays for the product. That's obviously for series, not for long films, feature films.
Well, yes, the thing is you shouldn't burn it publicly. You shouldn't talk about it publicly, because at the beginning you work your projects within the industry, and if it doesn't appear, then nobody knows that project did not get green lighted, and then you could get it 3 years later out and it's new because you didn't talk about it on Facebook or anything else. So many people just burn their projects by talking too much about them. And with short movies, it depends on the time you have. If you're doing it with your own funding and maybe you want to work on it for 4 years because it's still worth it to you, then okay. But then a moment might come when you get bored of it, and things that interested you when you started the short might not be interesting for you again. You're not the same person. So sometimes you just let them go and you think, oh, that's a pity. I did all of this work and now I'm just dropping it. Because a short that isn't finished, an animation short that isn't finished, is just part of a reel. It's nothing, which is good. If you have an amazing scene, then you could put it on your reel, but it's not a movie, it's not finished. But it's about thinking, okay, this is a pity, but I want to do other things that interest me now. So that has a name, I think. It's an economic term. Because you have invested something, then you have to go on and go on and go on, but you're wasting more just for keeping on doing it than if you had stopped. Yes, it's just the example is when you're, for instance, in a restaurant, they gave you a free check for an amazing dinner and you have eaten a lot and they tell you, do you want a dessert? You just eat it because it's free even if you don't want it. So sometimes you need to know that you have to say, no, listen, no, I don't need that. I'll stop here. And that's it. It's been a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. I can use this and on my reel or not, but now I want to do other things. And you also have to see it like that, not just think about what you're losing, but what you can win if you leave that aside, because other things are waiting for you. And I think that's the way of looking at it. And it just gives you, you have to mourn it. You have to maybe just put it to rest and mourn it, and that's it, and thank it for everything that it gave you. But there are new things on the horizon that you need to think of, and sometimes you just leave it in a drawer until the moment you think you can take it out of that drawer. And sometimes that idea survives, because sometimes if that idea survives through time and you're still passionate about it and you still see that it works, then wonderful. Lots of writers, directors have had ideas for 20 years, and at that time it still wasn't an option. But 20 years later, they took them, they put them on the table again, and it worked. Well, yes. Thank you both so much for this presentation, and we will still be here, and we will see you very soon. Thank you, Jamie. No, thank you. And you know that all of this information is on Cartoon Pro.